All right, it's 6 o'clock. You could all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today is June 27th. It's 6 p.m. I'm going to officially open up the Troy City Council Planning Committee agenda. First things first, let's do roll call. Councilmember Keel.
Present.
Council President Steele ex officio absent. Councilmember Vera.
Present.
Councilmember Casey absent. Councilmember Spain McLaren absent. Councilmember Soriento absent. Ryan Brosnan present. 6 o'clock. So I'd like to open up the floor for public comment on anything going on the agenda. Go ahead.
They're up on the podium, I believe. Either one should work. Just turn it
on. Hi, I'm Emily Menn. I'm on First Street in beautiful downtown Troy. I wrote to you earlier this week in opposition to a traffic circle on Federal Street, or multiple traffic circles on Federal Street, laying out some of my concerns about pedestrian bicyclist safety, the sort of the lack of need for it when there are less expensive and more pragmatic, flexible options available. I have followed this issue incredibly closely for about the last 4 years and participated in all of the public engagement sessions. And it was very obvious from the get-go that the way that the public engagement and feedback was structured was to get enough justification to build a traffic circle or multiple traffic circles. This is fairly typical when you have DOT projects because cars get money and human beings and bicycles don't. It's almost like there's a lobby and a big industry behind them, which, you know, they're advocating for what they're advocating, but I think people who walk and bike, we do need to balance that. Now, I wore uncomfortable shoes today because these are shoes I wear to weddings and fancy events, like Albany Symphony, which is going up upstairs. And the awesome thing about Troy is that you can walk to events, fancy, non-fancy, and then you can walk to the businesses surround those that are next to those events and get a little bite, buy a little thing, have a little fun, show off our city to people who are visiting. And what I really want to talk about when you're considering projects like this one and debating them and gathering more information to make accessible to the public is always think about the long-term economic impact. This neighborhood was one of the key neighborhoods absolutely decimated by urban renewal in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in Troy. Downtown was connected. There was no north central downtown and giant gaps for 5-lane gaps with just for cars. There were businesses, houses integrated in neighborhoods, and the loss of that sense of community really did gut the heart of Troy. And it has taken 40 years to recover, and that has been fueled by the small businesses and the people that took a risk when it was a burned out wasteland in this particular area. Now, it's the cool place to be. And a big part of that is the walkability. And in fact, the expansion of Franklin Plaza, purchasing 500 Federal Street, shows how that walkability and the ability to have big events and have hotels nearby, as well as restaurants, has expanded that economic growth. Franklin Plaza conservatively does 100 weddings at probably starting at $50,000 a pop. That's $5 million a year in one type of event. Weddings for 150 people, many of whom are coming from out of town, who are staying at our hotels, who are visiting our restaurants, crossing that intersection with a traffic circle when you have been to a party in your cute shoes and maybe had a few. Or maybe you're planning on having a few more, or having dinner, or have your little kids, or have grandma. The last thing we want to do is be responsible for a bride getting flat in the middle of Federal Street. You know, by scrutinizing projects like this closely and thinking about all the different user groups, and going back to what's the goal for Troy. Troy is the most walkable city in the Capital District. It's why we're cool and other cities aren't as cool. Walkability prevents social isolation, especially for our seniors, of which there's a significant amount of senior housing in this neighborhood. It also prevents social isolation for people who have mobility impairments, whether they're toddlers who can't walk very fast and have to be in strollers, or seniors. People that are in cars trying to move quickly, and this traffic circle will save them several seconds in their commute out of Troy. But people in cars don't spend money in shop. People who walk spend money. And walkability scores, high walkability scores, is something that you see as part of when you are looking for a house, like say on Zillow. A high walkability score is highly desirable. It increases property values, it increases our tax rate base, and walkability also increases public health. If you can walk places, it's easier to stay fit. So one of the things that, and I recognize the limits of council's ability. You approve money, you don't design projects, but you know, as you're working with our planning and economic development departments, in this particular case between 6th and River Street on Federal Street, looking at reducing the number of lanes from 5 to 3, increasing parking, increasing adding a bike lane, making that a narrower street, either with curb extensions, paint. There's a lot of different techniques that are low cost in comparison to $5.8 million, that also give us the flexibility so that if needs change, you don't have to tear out a ginormous traffic circle. We also could put into this intersection smarter lights that are talking to them and looking at if there are actually cars there and adjusting the timing. So I would say whenever you receive a study like this that's asking for a major change and a lot of money, just ask yourself a few questions and approach it with a certain degree of skepticism. Always ask, who's going to get paid up front? And then who has to pay long term? Whether that's in terms of added cost of maintenance, the added cost of labor, or the decrease in quality of life, all of those things have a dollar value. And sometimes when they're not an immediate thing, they're harder to measure. So thank you for your kind consideration. And I hope that within the bounds of City Council's power, that this project just neatly goes into the shredder and stays. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a rule to where to stand?
Right there.
Anywhere you're comfortable.
Okay, just check it.
Good.
So I walked here from my house.
Could you just state your name?
Oh.
Go ahead and try.
Erica Vale,
Thank you.
tax-paying citizen, homeowner, dog owner, walker, and I want to be safe in my own city. Safety first. The mayor is safety first. So, well, I don't know if I'm not putting words in your mouth,
Carmela, but I do remember getting something on my car that was about safety in as being a citizen. So I opposed this project because roundabouts are for countrysides, not promoting walkability scores and bikeability scores. And I would love to get back on two wheels. But if I have to compete with cars like I did on the way here, there's only so many dirty looks that you can give someone while they barely pause for you in the crosswalks that already exist. So I totally oppose this project. We have a better place to, I mean, I don't oppose improving the traffic scheme there because people are speeding as they come away from that light and they're zooming around the corner towards, I don't know, downtown, but past the wing joint. I'm bad at names. So, okay, without rambling too much, there is a there's a right-hand turn signal when you're coming off the bridge, and it's shared by people going straight through the light and people turning right. That would be a good mix, a good fix to add to the mix. And then the only time I ever got scared in my car near that intersection, thank you, was when I didn't notice a bike using the crosswalk. He wasn't walking his bike and I almost hit him and I slammed the brakes on. That scared the crap out of me. I've been hit on a bike in another city, so I don't really want to do that to someone else. And then the next question I have, and I guess this would be for the administration, is where do citizens come in this process other than right here, right now in front of you? So I'd like to be part of that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Good evening, folks. My name is Doris St. I reside on Stanton Avenue here in the city of Troy. I'm very concerned about this roundabout that's going down on allegedly Federal Street to the Green Island Bridge. And looking at some of the tape about how the Finance Committee addressed this transparency issue. I don't think that the people in the city of Troy are aware of a lot of things that are going on, and it's not just this administration, but it's been an ongoing mode of operation in this city for a long time. I've asked numerous times about what's going to happen with the garbage fee. I have to pay $500 for a two-family house, and it's only me and one other person with one bag of garbage, and nobody gives me any answers. I've asked questions in regards to when we have the Gilded Age come into the city, where does this money go? Where's the Recovery Act money at? Nobody seems to know, or we never get any answers, concrete answers as to what's happening here. I want to know, is this Recovery Act money going to this roundabout? And does that roundabout meet the criteria of how the money for the Recovery Act is being utilized? City of Troy has a lot of other things that need to be done besides put a roundabout to accommodate certain individuals. You talk about the elderly people on Fifth Avenue. I go to church on Fifth Avenue, and on Sundays, I have to say, I see people having difficulty crossing from Fifth Avenue to go to off of calling across Federal Street to go to Fifth Avenue. My question is, wouldn't it be a more, I'll say frugal idea to stripe off areas that people could cross? Because in this city, as far as I know, the speed limit is 30 miles an hour. So, Troy, people are saying that's an expressway or something else to the bridge or whatever else. That doesn't compute in my head because I'm like, nobody should be driving more than 30 miles an hour coming down Federal Street. And who are we really accommodating here? You know, I've heard many people say they don't even know that this is happening, and they're asking why. And nobody can give them an answer other than, oh, look at the survey. No, we've spent a lot of money in this city. I've been here I'm 69 years old. I've been here all my life. I have seen traffic studies go nowhere. I have seen all kinds of money go to all different kinds of things, and nothing ever comes to fruition. So my whole thing is, who's going to really give us a concrete answer as to how this is going to be paid for? Why are we doing it? Because we did it on 15th Street and it was an annoyance, and now it's gone. And people seem to be able to maneuver in this city without roundabouts. This is in Latham. I don't see that we have a volume of traffic like that, because I come into the city after 7 o'clock and it's like a ghost town. So who are we really accommodating here? And where's the money coming from? And the big question is why? Thank you.
Thank you. There anyone else here for the public comment section? Use the microphone. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Annie Borwick, and I now live at Swift and 6th Avenue. But for 42 years, I lived on 2148 Fifth Avenue. So I had to cross Federal Street all the time. And I actually have not looked at the up-to-date plans that you have, but I'm really concerned as an older driver. I see people cross roads. I see RPI students come down from RPI, and I often think that people are suburbanites and they don't know how to go into a city as pedestrians. I see people trying to cross the Green Island Bridge, and I worry about making across all the traffic. So I'm hoping to hear how this is going to work out well. I'm pretty open-minded about whether or not this is the way to solve it, but I'm very concerned about the pedestrians, and I'm terribly concerned about being a driver who might either hit a pedestrian or hit another car, avoiding the accident that's about to happen. So I just wanted to tell you that my big concern is the people crossing and how they do it and how well this will work. And I want to make sure that the solution is aimed at walkers more than it is aimed at drivers. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else looking to speak during the public comment section?
Evening, Stephen Maples, 92 Ida Street. In my former day job, I've recently left the Transportation Council, but I did work on this study. So I can be a resource to all of you if there's questions and things about that. As a private citizen and firmly a private citizen now, I actually think there's two things at play here. Number one, I think roundabouts as a general principle are a great idea. I think that they're fantastic in particular contexts. I think they're fantastic in suburban contexts. I think they're fantastic in rural contexts. They have a proven 90% reduction in fatalities for vehicle operators. That's hard to argue with. I mean, it really is. Like, nothing that we work on as transportation planners has a 90% reduction in fatalities. Just nothing comes close to that. So there's that part of the story. And then there's the story about urban context. And as you've heard, there's a lot of concern about how do people interact with cyclists? How do people who are more vulnerable, pedestrians, cyclists, how do they interact in these circumstances? And I think that's where it gets tricky. And frankly, the data kind of falls away at that point because a lot of the data that is there is very solid for vehicle drivers. It is less comprehensive when it comes to pedestrians and cyclists. Like the data is just kind of mixed. It's maybe it's a little safer, maybe it's not. And I think a lot of that has to do with some of the specifics of design. And as was previously mentioned, we're not necessarily going to get into design tonight, but I think it's something that the city council should be aware of, that the design of a roundabout can vary quite a bit. That's why you see something that's over in Latham is this very large thing, high capacity, high speed, all the way down to the neighborhood roundabouts that are meant for going 15 miles an hour. So you have a wide range, which is in each of those have an impact on pedestrian and cyclist safety, those more vulnerable users. So I'm not necessarily here to say that roundabouts are inherently a bad idea in this context, but I do think our level of scrutiny should be much, much higher. I think our basic principle moving forward should be when we get into that design phase, we should be asking, is a roundabout better at making the situation safer for all vulnerable road users in this kind of a context? And I think if the data is there to back it up, okay, but I'm honestly and pretty genuinely skeptical that it is going to have a better record, proven track record than some of the more traditional interventions, like curb extensions and medians and other things of that nature. So I would just advocate for a little bit of scrutiny is basically I think that what's in order here. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else looking to speak during the public comment period?
Okay, I'm a resident of Troy. I will keep my comments as brief as I can. I will echo the concerns that everyone else has with the traffic circle. I'm a pedestrian. I've tried to go through traffic circles with my dog in Latham. It was a nightmare. I've just tried to be a pedestrian crossing traffic circles. As people are coming out of roundabouts, they're really not looking for pedestrians very much. I think that can create a dangerous situation. And even if it doesn't create a dangerous situation, there's a perception that it's creating a dangerous situation. You're not going to have a lot of pedestrian crossings on the street and people are going to feel uncomfortable. I think that's something that is absolutely worth keeping in mind. What I actually wanted to talk about, though, was a swimming pool in Lansingburg that the city is prepared to spend millions of dollars on. I do think that before the city spends millions of dollars on a facility that might be open 6 to 8 weeks a year, is going to be in the six figures for staffing, is going to be in the six figures for maintenance every year. This city should probably think about partnering with another organization. We have a YMCA in Troy that is tucked away in a far corner of Troy. If the city were to partner with the YMCA to pull a YMCA down into maybe a north central location, you would have instead of a 6 to 8 week a year swimming pool, you'd have a 52-week a year swimming pool that could also have workout facilities, community meeting spaces, co-working spaces, childcare facilities. And, all of that would come without the city needing to staff or maintain a pool. I think that if you want to create a space for people to go and have and recreate, I think that partnering with another organization like the YMCA would probably give you a lot more bang for your buck than the city trying to open and manage something themselves. I was at the Prospect Park pool yesterday, and we've all seen what's happened to that. I know that the South Troy pool has a leaking liner that creates an issue. I don't know that the South Troy pool, since it's open, has created a lot of economic activity in the neighborhood. And while I hail from the land of swimming pools, I spent all of my childhood summer days at a swimming pool. I think that if we want to create the best solution for kids and adults and everyone in the community today, we need to think about whether or not we're just putting a bright, shiny object out in front of people that is a bad financial decision later. I also, I mean, until the city has a better handle on what its finances actually are, I was at the meeting yesterday. I don't know that we should be asking taxpayers to spend more money on, you know, a thing that is of maybe dubious financial value. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else interested in speaking during the public comment period? Seeing no one, we're going to move into the agenda. I'd like to invite the administration up to speak on it, starting with the Knickerbocker Park.
Good evening, council.
Good evening. Good evening.
So I can just give a brief overview here of the Nick, in regard to the pool. And, you know, let me just say here a couple of things about the Knickerbocker pool. The public has been overwhelmingly heard on this. They want the pool on the north end of the city. Although it can't have all year, use, that does not mean that it's not of value to the community and our youth. Just like at South Troy Pool, keep in mind, this is not just a place to get wet and splash around, which is still also has a lot of value, but this is somewhere where our youth can not be on the streets. There's sometimes meal programs. It's a safe space. So it's a lot more than a pool. And again, the public has been overwhelmingly heard. You know, we've been talking about this pool for years and years. I'm proud to say that when this administration came into office, the mayor was adamant about pushing along the schedule so that we can see the children in the pools and the families can utilize this pool by summer of next year. We're pushing forward, and that's on track for June 2025 opening, which we're very proud of. You know, trying to move some pieces around of the project to get it done and to accomplish that for the area. And, you know, as you can see with some of the drawings, you know, we're very proud of the South Troy pool, but this is something else that I think can be looked at as more of the Nick is going to be a complete complex with the ice rink, with the pool, the Knickerbocker board just put in a pavilion. They put in a newer playground. It has a community garden. So there's so much benefit there as well. And, you know, the administration has a perfectly fine handle on the city's findings. That would not at all disrupt this project or any of the projects we're taking on that we're very proud of. But so the Nick pool, to give you a timeline here, we're going to be seeing pre-final bid documents in the next week or so. They're putting those together now. They'll be going out for construction bid and then awarded in September. So we will be seeing construction on that starting in September, maybe end of September, October. And part of the reason how we were able to push the project up instead of them starting the pool, say in February or so of next year, they're going to start constructing on some of these outbuildings and all of that. This way they can kind of move forward and pause for the winter. Although I'm sure we all have a lot of concerns about how our winters are these days. You can start construction earlier than we've been able to in many years past. So that's another plus of that as well. There is already ARPA funding allocated for it. There's about 4.6 million left for that out of ARPA funds. And the administration is also aggressively going after a New York Swim grant as well. That was something that we jumped right on. Another thing that Assemblyman McDonald let us know about. We jumped right on as soon as we can, prepping for that when it was opening for the applications. So, that could really help complete the total cost of the project. Could possibly even help maybe limit some of the ARPA funds that we have to use for it. So, we're very excited about the pool. I'm sure you council have some questions.
Yeah, do you know roundabout how much the New York Swims grant would be for, ideally?
Yeah, so it's, we're applying for the max, so, we're gonna be applying for the 7 million, so there, it's matched. I wanna say, I think the whole grant funding, they might have 90 million that can be given out. But a lot of the parameters of the grant, Troy is just so, scores very high. And again, the fact that we did kind of got ahead of the game and we're ahead of the game with the data and stuff to provide to the state to get on that. I think that will help our cause with it as well.
Sure.
Councilmember Vera?
So you said that we've got 4.6 million in ARPA allocated currently,
Correct.
and then the swim grant would be a match.
Correct.
So, not to say we would need the full 7 million, but if we did receive that, the city would contribute whatever the additional funding would be.
Correct. So, we're of course going to shoot for the highest amount, but let's say we end up getting a 4 million or whatever out of it. Correct. Yep.
Okay.
The city will fulfill the rest of that.
What's the current projected budget for the pool?
So we're currently looking at a little over 7 million, 7.2 million.
And that's the pool, that's
That's
full
the
construction of everything that we have in front of us.
complete complex. Yep. Well, the aquatic complex, because I know I'm referring obviously to the other parts of the park, but yeah, sure, correct. Council.
But that 7.2 million includes basically everything we see in the renderings here.
Correct.
Were any discussions had about teaming with some local partners, like the YWCA or YMCA or Boys and Girls Club or anything like that?
So we currently do. The Capital Region Boys and Girls Club is currently facilitates our lifeguards at the South Troy Pool. So I would imagine we would definitely be looking into a continued partnership with them, a continued working relationship with them, possibly to be the lifeguards at the pool, the supervisory role too. I know also there was some numbers mentioned out there about the staffing of those too. We're at the South Troy Pool. You're talking about $170,000 to staff. So it wouldn't necessarily be we wouldn't be seeing a $500,000 or $600,000 staffing cost at that pool as well.
What do we think the ongoing maintenance and staffing costs for the pool would be?
Yeah, so the exact ongoing maintenance and stuff, I can get you a more projected number on that. I don't have an exact number in front of me. But I can get that for you. The staffing one, I would imagine that number would be very close and similar to the South Troy Pool. You can kind of get the feel of the Knickerbocker Pool. It's a little bigger, so I'd imagine that might require a little bit more staff, but I can't imagine too much more than the 170. Operation costs, though, I can get that for you. Projected operation costs.
Additional questions at this time?
Deputy Mayor, I know in one of the neighborhood meetings in Lansingburg, there was concerns about the adjoining properties to the pool and the sight line of the pool to their backyards. On the rendering, we have privacy bushes along the parking lot. Would we be able to just move those over to the adjoining property line?
I think that's a great point, council member. And I know that we have discussed in a couple different meetings how to limit that impact to the folks that do live there. I think we've talked about some type of privacy elements. The shrubs or greenery might actually already be part of this too, but thank you for bringing that up because we'll make sure to note that because I can't imagine that's not too hard to include if it's not.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another.
Councilmember Vera.
Yeah, is the South Troy pool open currently right now? When's it scheduled? And if not, when is it scheduled to be open?
It is not currently open, and we're working on getting it open as soon as possible. So I can update you on that too. We're currently working for getting our lifeguards certified.
Okay. And then, you know, when the pool at the Nick is constructed, what do we expect the schedule to be for that? You know, how many weeks a year are we talking about?
Yeah, so I think, and another thing that we're going to look into the South Troy pool for in future years as well is trying to get these, again, it's getting warmer earlier as too. So, I mean, trying to get more of those, maximize the warm months, you know, so seeing it run through a, June, you know, through September, kind of mimicking some of the same schedule that you see at South Troy Pool. You know, they're open from 12 to 7. We did kind of just recently have a talk with Boys and Girls Club, entertaining, do we do a 10 to 7? What would that look like? You know, we're not sure. It does, as the day progresses, it obviously gets warmer. Not sure if a lot of folks will be there at 10. But you know, that is definitely stuff that we're going to be working on. But our goal, just like the South Troy Pool, would be to have it open, you know, not opening mid-July like we've seen in years past, but really trying to get it so we can maximize the use of it.
And has that application for New York Swim, has that application been submitted?
So it has not yet, but it is, it's about to be.
Okay.
Yes, it's about to be finalized.
Then a follow-up, seeing as that hasn't gone in. Has any thought been given to enclosing the complex as detailed here and keeping it open for a longer period of time to make more use of it?
I know that that's been discussions that definitely have got floated around before, and I do understand, you know, looking into those options, but at the same point too, talking about the cost of it, that just, I know that would increase the potential uses, but it's obviously going to just completely skyrocket the cost as well. So it just unfortunately doesn't seem too feasible of an option.
Okay. No additional questions.
Questions?
All right, thank you. I'd entertain a motion. Move on to the Prospect Park.
I'll make a motion to move on.
Yeah.
Second that.
Perfect. Yes. All right. You don't mind moving on to Prospect Park?
Yes. Okay, so Prospect Park, we're currently doing that. We're going to be seeing construction start as well. Let's see here, July 8th in that area of time. That will be on redoing 6 tennis courts in a playground area. We're looking for this to be complete mid to late September. One thing too, another when we did, the new administration got into office, I actually attended a pre-construction bid and realized that we were not paying to redo the fencing around the tennis courts, which I just thought, you know, I mean, if you're going to do something, just do it right. So after discussing with the mayor, she also agreed to that, you know, let's add that part of it into this project. So it, again, if you're spending upwards of almost $1 million here, 900,000, it's worth, you know, spending 60 or 70, I believe, to cost the fence. And I'm sure many of you have been up there. You know, the fence is not in good condition. So it'll be great to see that completed as well. And not to divert quick, but, you know, the mayor talks often and we're working on this, but Prospect Park just deserves really its own master plan, a full comprehensive plan to kind of bring back this, our city's anchor park. I mean, it has so much historic value. I mean, we could be seeing so much more in trails and different things to be used up there. Folks really love the disc golf, which brings a lot of folks there. The circus, I mean, so many different things. So we'd really like to see. It's fallen out of disrepair over years. The bathrooms, etc. They really need to be redone. So, you know, that's something that we'll be working on. Look forward to presenting that to you in the future. But anyway, so this park, another thing to know too, with the park, the Prospect Park project, it's coming in at 989,000 plus, and this will be coming before the council here soon. You know, we had a $70,000 increase, unfortunately, on the playground through Sourcewell. So we're gonna have to come up with that. We'll be coming to the council for that as well. And there's a little bit more funding that's actually needed to complete what's already been allocated for this. We're talking about, including the 70,000, around $259,000. So you'll be seeing, that will be coming before the council. Another thing to be noted here as well. This has been funded a lot through ARPA, but also some through the capital plan as well. And like I said, the construction is starting here July 8th.
Chair,
Councilmember Vera.
you said the budget is 589,000?
989.
989,000. And that's
That's the cost. Yeah, that's the cost.
right. And that is right. Understood. Not the budget.
Yep.
989,000, nearly a million. And that's 259,000 above what had been budgeted.
So yes, there was 800, a little over 800,000 that was put aside for that. Yes.
Okay. And how much, you said the funding sources are ARPA and the capital plan. How much is coming out of the capital plan?
So the exact breakdown of the amount out of the capital plan, I believe was, moment. I thought I had that exact breakdown, but that's something that I can get for you too. I want to say the larger share of it is through our ARPA funding. It wasn't the capital plan. It wasn't too much out of that, but I can get you that exact number, Councilman.
All right. And you had
That exact breakdown, I apologize.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you had said that you guys are, working on a master plan. Would that be done by a consultant? Would that be done in-house? What are your feelings on how that might take place?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't exactly got to that point of it yet. I think that we know the public really is looking for some changes up there too. So I think just like, again, this administration is huge on the public input. We want to make sure to get people together. So starting with the public and some thoughts there probably wouldn't be too bad. And then seeing what we can do in-house. See what Mr. Reeves could whip up, but we, may end up leaning on one of the consultants that we have contracted for this. We're just not out there exactly yet. And there, and I apologize, councilperson, but another thing too is there has been already some other ideas and plans floated out there from the past, not only just in City Hall, but outside. So, there is some information to pull from when it comes to that.
That's a perfect segue into my next question. I had floated an idea to you and the mayor. I can't remember where we were. I think it was at the firefighter demonstration.
Was it before or after I got sprayed with the water?
I think it was after. Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding.
I was just glad it wasn't the flame.
Yeah, it definitely could have been worse. I know I had spoken with the two of you about possibly using some of the either CHIPS funding or some of the other roadway sources to repave some of the roadways that we have in Prospect. It's obviously it's needed it for quite some time. I'm not looking for you to make a decision right now, but is that type of thing something that you would wait to implement until you have a master plan, or are you guys? I guess what is the scope of the master plan? Are we completely redoing Prospect Park, or are we looking to make some incremental improvements to it?
I think the idea would be identifying, obviously, since it is so many things need to be done, including the paving, the restrooms, the trails, what happens with the old pool up there that I know some folks have wishes of that becoming a pool again. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen. But, what to really do up there. It has a lot of opportunity for an overlook, beautiful view sheds. I mean, the list really goes on. So that is something that we'll definitely consider. Not sure if that's something that we can get done this year, but it is something that we've been floating around internally as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I know you mentioned The total cost is $989,000, an increase of $70,000 for playground equipment. Is that built into the $989,000? That $70,000 additional to?
So that is, that's built into that.
All right, thank you. Is that just due to the inflation on playground equipment?
Yeah, unfortunately, and, you know, through Sourcewell too, we're kind of beholden to those increases a bit. It does, I can't remember what, something not too long ago, we had, it was a fire truck or something. We had to, you know, do the same thing, and unfortunately, you have to do it. Like most things, everything's increasing, so.
Chair,
Councilmember Vera.
I did have a question. You're resurfacing a portion of the tennis courts, not all of them.
Not all, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that a complete resurfacing? Like all new asphalt, whatever the material is, they kind of spray it with?
Correct.
Like a coating?
Correct.
Any thought to providing additional striping for other sports that could be played on?
So
courts?
thank you for my segue. So we're looking into seeing, possibly if we can do a pivot to a pickleball court in one of them. There is also the other courts that are done. So we've been talking about, do we end up ultimately making those into pickleball? Obviously, that's a new huge craze. We're seeing that in some of our other parks now, like 112. But so it is definitely something that's another thing, specifically with the pickleball that we're looking into. A lot of folks have reached out to the mayor's office asking for that too. So something we're looking into.
Excellent. Thank you.
I take a motion to move on again.
Motion to move on.
Move it.
Let's move it. All right. Yeah, you don't mind Federal Street?
I will hand it over to our planning commissioner.
Oh, yeah. Couple, just really quick things. The Nick, Seamus mentioned, the swims grant. I did want to add that, we met early on after I was elected with the governor's office, John McDonnell, regarding the Nick, and the governor's deputy gave, let's just say, very good optimism for Nick Pool. So we're very, very hopeful on that. And Bill Rohr is finishing that contract that Seamus mentioned. I did also want to add, I know that John, one of our residents, mentioned the YMCA, et cetera. One of the things, because as you know, I've been a resident of Troy all my life. I've grown up in Lansingburg and attending many of the ARPA engagement sessions. The folks from Berg, when they talked about the Knickerbocker pool, made it very, very clear they wanted an outdoor pool. Now, the catch to that, could we put a retractable that was like that? And it is very, very costly, as Seamus mentioned. So unfortunately, the retractable roof and that type of facility was just out of range. But saying that, the outdoor pool, the folks in the Berg made it clear they wanted an outdoor pool. Regarding Prospect, I'm very glad that Seamus mentioned our pickleball court. And the other 8 courts, we do want to look at those courts for 2025 for possible more pickup courts. But I did ask Seamus to speak to the consultant to look at one of the tennis courts to line that into a pickleball court. And I guess we do team up and partner with a club for the tennis activities of that Prospect. And then moving on, I wanted to just give you my thoughts really quickly on Ferry, or Federal, sorry, Ferry, Federal, yes. But that's okay, that's next, Ferry, we'll talk about that someday. But Federal, I just wanted folks to know my position on this. I am not fully sold at all on 2 roundabouts along the Federal corridor.
I did want to address two questions that were mentioned. A, it's a grant that Randy will talk about, our commissioner, from 2021. And the monies are specifically and solely dedicated to federal street corridors. So I've received some emails, some phone calls. Let's use that money for other parts of the city. Let's use it for other roadways, et cetera, that are in bad condition. We can't. These are grant monies specifically for the federal street corridor project. My position on this, to get back to that, I'm not sold on the two roundabouts. However, understanding, like Burdett Avenue, you have a huge stretch between federal along the Green Island, off of the bridge, and then going over onto Fifth. Saying that, I am in favor of potentially looking at some sort of island. But for me, the downtown, our neighborhoods, is all about accessibility, walkability. It's about safety. And frankly, I don't want roundabouts to move motorists through Troy. And I talked to Randy earlier. I know there are different types of roundabouts. We saw the roundabouts, so I don't need to go there, but that was taken out. But saying that, I want to ensure safety, walkability, accessibility, and a connection to our businesses and to our second to none waterfront. So in terms of those roundabouts, potentially could a roundabout be looked at a different scale to make it more walkable? I'm not sure, but this next step is critical. But for me, I'm not sold on the two roundabouts. However, for the corridor, I would look at islands to make it safer, to make crossing the street more walkable. But saying that, the next steps, we will have a public meeting. Randy will go into that. So I wanted to make it clear that I'm not sold on the two roundabouts. So, okay.
Okay, so I guess what value I can add here is to give a little overview of where the project.
Can you speak right into the microphone?
Thanks, Ed. All right. Is that better?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll start again. The best I can do for you, I think, would be to give an overview of where the project is at, but also a little bit about the history of it. Council Member Vera, I'm sure you're very familiar with the history, but
I'm not actually.
okay. All right. Well, then maybe this will be helpful. I mean, there was a lot of planning efforts that have surrounded the federal street corridor over the years. I think from the sort of look that I've taken at it since I've been here, it's been talked about since even before the comprehensive plan was put into place. So the corridor itself is an important element of comprehensive planning for the city. I think everyone would agree with that. Specifically about this project, the planning efforts have all led to different, not different, but have all talked about some common themes: connectivity, making it safer, et cetera. And what ultimately several planning efforts led to was the Capital Region Transportation Council agreeing to fund a study that would do basically just a build concept for what could be done to achieve several objectives. One is to calm traffic, improve pedestrian connectivity and access. And this is the part that I think many people are, the more controversial part is create a boulevard bookended by roundabouts, improve air quality by reducing vehicle emissions and idling, and provide bicycle connections within the city and to the Empire State Trail. So that those objectives were what led the council to provide funding for a study to just basically do a build concept. And that build concept was done in 2022. Public workshops were held in both the spring, summer, and fall of that year. There was a lot of input from what I could gather from the research I've done on previous planning efforts. And it ultimately culminated in the council providing funds to do preliminary design work on that corridor. And so that's where the money comes from, is being provided for this. It's through the transportation improvement program of the council. So that's money that they've set aside for doing preliminary design for the corridor to achieve all those objectives that I just said. Subsequently, the previous administration decided that it wanted to move forward, and they issued an RFP in October of 2023 to get a engineering consulting firm on board to do that preliminary design. And through that RFP process, a selection was made before the end of the year. I think it was probably in December, and a selection was made to Creighton Manning to do that preliminary design work. It seems that there seems to be some preferential bias, I guess. Maybe bias is not the right word, but there's some preference for the build concept that has the roundabouts just sort of bookended between, at the bridge, River Street, and 6th Avenue. But it's ultimately a preliminary design for the corridor, and alternatives can be looked at. Ultimately, there's only enough resources there to choose one design, but the process itself will allow for looking at different designs, having public input, and ultimately making a choice where Creighton Manning would do more, would finish the preliminary design and issue a report based upon whatever alternative is selected.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at. We're at the point where we'd either decide to move forward with the contract or not.
Thank you. Do we have any other alternatives that are already done in research, or is this the only option at the moment that has gone out with the engineering firm?
I haven't seen any plans as, fully, the build concept that fully explored as the one that was in this previous study.
Okay.
Chair.
Councilmember Vera.
Thank you. Is CME currently under contract on that just under $700,000 contract?
No, they're not.
They're not?
They are not.
So an RFP went out October of 23. CME was selected, but a contract was never executed.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
We haven't done that would require city council approval.
Oh, correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know what their scope was in that contract? Were they scoped for additional alternatives, or were they not?
They're scoped to look at alternatives.
Okay.
But there is a sort of overriding goals that I outlined. And there's, in the RFP, there was reference to, you know, the roundabouts
Okay,
as being part of the goal. But with the scope, their scope really is preliminary design for the corridor, looking to achieve multiple goals, not just that goal.
right, right. So, in your opinion, should that process continue, would CME be able to consider additional alternatives, such as, you know, a traditional four-way intersections,
Yeah,
along with other improvements?
yeah.
It's not directly related to this project, but it is shown on the concept that we were given. Do you know the status of the Empire State Trail connection across the Green Island Bridge? I believe DOT, or maybe it was HRVG had earmarked about $400,000 for that project. That's one I'm a little bit more familiar with. Do you know the status of that project?
I only know that it's in DOT's court.
Okay, it is, but you haven't heard anything back from them on the status or anything?
No.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Is it early to know the estimated cost of doing this project if we were to go with the roundabout in front of us? Two roundabouts in front of us?
I'm trying to remember now because I did read that report, and there were, again, that was a build concept. It was not preliminary design. There's a difference in terms of how deep you go in and how accurate any estimates can be. But I seem to recall a number of around 4 or 5 million if it was constructed out.
Yeah, I think it might have been 5.8. Is that correct, Emily? Yes. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
That's all right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Which is money that Chair,
Councilmember Vera.
which is money or funding that could otherwise be used to make improvements to the corridor, right? I mean, there's the potential to make a lot of improvements to this corridor, whether the concept involves roundabouts or it doesn't.
True, but
Yeah.
it does, but that money hasn't been like approved yet by the council.
Or by CRTC.
By CRTC,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
not that council. A lot of councils.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I'd want to say is I would hope that, you know, if you guys, if the administration chooses to move forward with the contract, that public involvement be one of the things from the get-go. It sounds like everybody's on the same page with that, so that we can make the most use of the 700,000, just shy of 700,000 we have in design, and so that the consultant has enough runway to move us forward to do something with this corridor. I mean, I think we all agree that something needs to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, council member, exactly. So that was something that I just wanted to, you know, clarify too, that, you know, one, the thoughts and the, I guess, preference of the two roundabouts were from the previous administration or whoever was involved in it then too. Clearly, it sounds like we're looking at it a different way, but I know when we think of these projects, we think of the public, you know, comment periods and things like that, but we will be doing a full-on preemptive public engagement to it because to us, there's no sense of going down the path of, you know, even spending the amount to get to the next phase before it's unclear really what the full public is looking for. You know, like the mayor said, the mayor's office has received a lot of opinions on this. We got folks here speaking tonight. Businesses in that corridor themselves are very concerned. A lot of stuff. So the administration is just diving in, doing a more deeper dive into this, but we will be getting the public, you know, really involved to hear more of the exact thing that we heard tonight. So to really see what the folks, you know, what the folks are looking for down there, what improves the pedestrian accessibility of the corridor, because as we constantly say, that is one of Troy's, if not its biggest strength, our walkability. So we don't want to impede that at all. You know, we understand that the roundabouts do have a positive impact in vehicular accidents. But again, that being said, you know, we want to make sure just in a lot of the projects that we're, you know, making sure that the pedestrians crossing, that is number one.
Any more questions?
I have no questions.
All right, I'll entertain the motion.
Well, motion to move on, but can we discuss a couple of other projects that weren't on the agenda? Briefly.
Potentially, if they are prepared.
I mean, I would ask, we came prepared with the specific agenda. I mean, we're always here for any questions if you want to ask them offline, of course.
Just really quickly, I assure you, we don't have to go into any detail. Is there any, and quite honestly, I think I've asked them, I just wanted to have them on the record. Is there any update to the public involvement for the Congress Ferry project?
So that we actually did have a meeting just recently about that. So we are getting to scheduling that as well. Because we are at that point to talk about those alternatives and get the public input.
Excellent, because that project, you know, we're talking about CME getting under contract on federal. That project has gotten past that point. You're under contract, but it's in the same stage, right? Preliminary design stage.
Correct.
Excellent. And then the only other item I wanted to just ask about was Burdette Avenue. So that was a project that was not a city project. It was a project that was undertaken by some RPI students for their capstone project. Has the administration put any thought into whether or not you know, one of those alternatives that were presented through that process could be looked at, or is there funding available? Anything?
Another thing that's under review looking at too. We know how important. It's another thing that we hear all the time. Russ has been involved in some of those meetings as well. So we're reviewing and discussing that all internally. Because we do want to make sure that obviously that corridor again, you know, make it safer. So Mayor?
Just one quick thing. Thank you for bringing that up. But in-house, we have made improvements, we'll say, to the pedestrian safety at Sage, Burdette. Russ is involved. Bill Wangler's involved with the capstone project. No money was put behind that, unfortunately, but some good input, a good study. Troy School District was also involved. But certainly that would have to be some skin from RPI, Troy School District, and we would be a partner in that project. But deep diving into that, we haven't taken that next step. But I will say some immediate improvements have taken place along Burdette. Crosswalks were put in by Sage. I'd like to see an island. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very wide stretch for folks, RPI students, to cross there. It's not very safe. There was an accident last year, I believe, 2024. So we are in conversations with RPI about Burdette outside of signage, driving the bigger picture. So we'll keep you posted.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
That was.
Thank you. I'd entertain the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Perfect. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.